This includes a religion of mumbo-jumbo doublespeak. Every pyramid civilization uses this as part of a control mechanism to keep the population enslaved by force, by fear, and by ignorance. The indecipherable muddle of irrelevant information, geometric designs, mathematical calculation, astronomical alignments are part of the false spirituality based on solid objects rather than immortal spirits, in order to confuse and disorient the Isbis on Earth. When the body of a person died, they were buried with their earthly possessions, including their former body wrapped in linen, to sustain their soul, or ka, after death. An Isbi does not have a soul. An Isbi is a soul. On the home planet of an Isbi, their material possessions were not lost, stolen, or forgotten when the being died or left the body. An Isbi could return and claim the possessions. However, if the Isbi has amnesia, they will not remember that they had any possession. So governments, insurance companies, bankers, family members, and other vultures can pick their possessions clean without fear of retribution from the deceased. The only reason for these false meanings is to instill the idea that an Isbi is not a spirit but a physical object. This is a lie. This is a trap for an Isbi. Countless people have spent endless hours attempting to solve the jigsaw puzzle of Egypt and other old empire civilizations. They are puzzles made of pieces that do not fit. A question states its own answer. What is the mystery of Egypt and other pyramid cultures? Mystery. Circa 15,000 BCE. The old empire forces supervised the construction of hydraulic mining operations in the Andes Mountains in present-day Bolivia near Lake Titicaca, Lake of 10 Stones, at Tiwanaku, including construction of the massive stone complex of carved stone buildings known as Kalasasaya and its Gate of the Sun at the elevation of nearly 14,000 feet, 11,600 BCE. The polar axis of Earth shifted. The polar axis of Earth shifted to a sea area. The last ice age came to an end abruptly as the polar ice caps melted and the level of the ocean rose to submerge large sections of the land masses of Earth. The last remaining vestiges of Atlantis and Lemuria were covered by water. Massive extinctions of animals occurred in the Americas, Australia, and the Arctic regions due to the shift of the poles. 10,450 BCE. Plans were made by the old empire Isbi called Thoth for construction of a great pyramid of Giza. The 4 air shafts of the pyramid point precisely to key stars in the old empire as seen from Giza this year. The alignment of the pyramids of Giza on the ground matches perfectly the alignment of the constellation of Orion as seen in the sky from Giza relative to the Nile as the earthly representation of the Milky Way in the sky. 10,400 BCE. According to the Earth historian Herodotus records from the ruined civilizations of Atlantis, containing electronic technology and other technology of that society, were buried in a vault beneath the paws of the Sphinx. The Greek historian wrote that he was told about this by some of his friends who were priests of Anu, the Sumerian god, at the Egyptian city of Heliopolis. However, it is highly unlikely that any traces of an electronic civilization would be allowed to be left intact on Earth by the old empire prison system administrators. 8,212 BCE. The Veda or Vedic hymns are a set of religious hymns that were introduced to the societies of Earth. They came forward in spoken tradition, memorized from generation to generation. The hymn to the Dawn Child includes an idea called the cycle of the physical universe, the creation, growth, conservation, decay, and death, or destruction of energy and matter in a space. These cycles produce time. The same set of hymns describes the theory of evolution. Here is a tremendous body of knowledge which contains a great deal of spiritual truth. Unfortunately, it has been incorrectly evaluated by humans and altered with lies and reversals of fact by priests, which are a booby trap to prevent anyone from using the wisdom to discover a way to escape from the prison planet. 8050 BCE. Destruction of the old empire home planet government in this galaxy. This was the end of the old empire as a political entity in the galaxy. However, the vast size of the old empire will take many thousands of years for the domain to conquer completely. The inertia of the political, economic, and cultural systems of the old empire will remain in place for some time to come. However, remnants of the old Empire space fleet in the solar system of Earth were finally destroyed in 1230 AD. In addition to operatives of the old Empire who run the Earth prison operation, there were other beings from the old Empire who came to Earth. Since Earth was no longer under the control of the old Empire, after their defeat by the Domain forces, there was no police force to control military renegades, space pirates, miners, merchants, and entrepreneurs who came to Earth to exploit the resources of the planet for personal gain and many other nefarious reasons. For example, the history of the Earth according to the Jewish people describes the Nephilim. Chapter 6 of the book of Genesis describes the origin of Nephilim. Now it came about, when men began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves, whomever they choose. The Nephilim were on earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. The ancient Jewish people who wrote the history book called the Old Testament were slaves, herders, and gatherers. Any modern technology, even a simple flashlight, would seem astounding and miraculous to them. They attributed any unexplainable phenomenon to technology of the workings of a god. Unfortunately, this behavior is universal among all ISBEs who have been given amnesia and cannot remember their own experiences, training, technology, personality, or identity.
Obviously, if these were men and they mated with Earth women, they were not sons of God. They were ISBEs who inhabited biological bodies in order to take advantage of the political situation in the old empire, or simply to indulge in physical sensation. They set up small colonies of their own on Earth beyond the reach of the police and tax authorities. Coincidentally, one of the most serious crimes an ISBE could commit in the old empire was to violate income tax regulations. Income taxes were used as a slavery mechanism and a punishment in the old empire. The slightest error in a tax report made an ISBE untouchable, followed by imprisonment on Earth. 6750 BCE. Other pyramid civilizations were set up by the old empire on Earth. These were established in Babylon, Egypt, China, and Mesoamerica. The Mesopotamian area provided service facilities, communication stations, spaceports, and stone quarry operations for these false civilizations. Ptah was the name given to the first in a succession of administrators from the old empire who represented themselves to Earth population as divine rulers. Ptah's importance may be understood when one learns that the word Egypt is a Greek corruption of the phrase Het Ka Ptah, or House of the Spirit of Ptah. Ptah was nicknamed the Developer. He was a construction engineer. His high priest was given the title Great Leader of Craftsmen. Ptah was also the god of reincarnation in Egypt. He originated the opening of the mouth ceremony, which was performed by priests at funerals to release souls from their corpses. Of course, when the souls were released, they were captured, given amnesia, and returned to Earth again. The so-called divine rulers who followed Ptah on Earth were called Neter, meaning guardians or watchers by the Egyptians. Their symbol was the serpent, or dragon, which represented a secret priesthood of the old empire called the Brothers of the Serpent. Old empire engineers used cutting tools of highly concentrated light waves to quickly carve and excavate stone blocks. They also used force fields and spacecraft to lift and transport blocks of stone weighing hundreds or thousands of tons each. The placement on the ground of some of these structures will be found to have geodesic or astronomical significance relative to various stars in this galactic region. The buildings are crude and impractical compared to building standards on most planets. As an engineer of the domain, I can attest that makeshift structures like these would never pass inspection on a planet in the domain. Stone blocks such as those used in pyramid civilizations can still be seen, partially excavated in the stone quarries in the Middle East and elsewhere. Most of the structures were hastily built props, much like the false facades of the Western town on a set of a motion picture. They appear to be real and to have some use or value. However, they have no value. They have no useful purpose. The pyramids and all of the other stone monuments erected by the old empire could be called mystery monuments. For what reason would anyone waste so many resources to construct so many useless buildings, to create a mysterious illusion? The fact of the matter is that each one of the divine rulers were Isbis who served as operatives of the old empire. They were certainly not divine, although they were Isbis. 6248 BCE. The beginning of active warfare between the Domain Space Command and the surviving remnants of the old Empire space fleet in this solar system that lasted nearly 7,500 years. It began when an installation was established in the Himalaya Mountains by a battalion of the 3,000 officers and crew members of the Domain Expeditionary Force. The installation was not fortified, as the Domain was not aware that the old empire maintained Earth as a prison planet. The Domain installation was attacked and destroyed by space forces of the old empire, who continued to operate in the solar system of Earth. Isbis of the Domain battalion were captured, taken to Mars, given amnesia, and sent back to Earth to inhabit human biological bodies. They are still on Earth. 5965 BCE. Investigations into the disappearance of Domain forces in this solar system led to the discovery of old empire bases on Mars and elsewhere. The Domain took over the planet Venus as a defensive position against the space forces of the old empire. The Domain Expeditionary Force also monitors life forms on Venus, which has a very dense, hot, heavy atmosphere of sulfuric acid clouds. There are few life forms on Earth that can endure an atmospheric environment like Venus. The Domain also established secret installations or space stations in the Earth's solar system. This solar system has a planet that is broken up, the asteroid belt. It provides a very useful low-gravity platform for takeoff and landing of spacecraft. It is used as a galactic jump between the Milky Way and adjoining galaxies. There aren't any planets at this end of the galaxy that can serve as a good galactic entering spot for incoming transport and other ships. But this broken-up planet makes a very ideal space station. As a result of our war against the old empire, this area of the solar system is now a valuable possession of the Domain. 3450 to 3100 BCE. The intervention into the affairs of Earth by the old empire operatives, or divine gods, was disrupted at this time by the Domain forces. They were forced to replace themselves with human rulers. The first dynasty of human pharaohs, who united Upper and Lower Egypt, began with the rule of a pharaoh who coincidentally was named Men. He established the capital city called Men-Nefer, the beauty of men, in Egypt. This started the first succession of 10 human pharaohs and a period of 350 years of chaos that followed in the administrative ranks of the old empire. 3200 BCE. As I mentioned earlier, Earth was under attack between the Domain and the old empire forces during this period. Of course, this does not make any sense to archaeologists or historians on Earth, because the Egyptian period is a space opera era period. Since Earth historians have amnesia, they assume that this was only a religious period. Further, because the technology and civilizations installed on Earth during this period were pre-packaged, they did not evolve on Earth. Of course, there is no evidence anywhere on Earth of an evolutionary transition which resulted in sophisticated mathematics, language, writing, religion, architecture, cultural traditions in Egypt, or any of the pyramid civilizations. These cultures, complete with all the details of racial body types, hairstyles, facial makeup, rituals, moral codes, and so forth, just appeared as complete integrated packages. The physical evidence suggests that all evidence of the intervention of the Domain or the old empire forces or any other extraterrestrial activity has been carefully cleaned up so as not to create suspicion. The old empire force does not want the Isbis of Earth to suspect that they have been captured, transplanted to Earth, and brainwashed. So Earth historians continue to assume that Egyptian priests were not supposed to have ray guns or other technology of the old empire, and they suppose that there was nothing going on Earth except some priests walking around saying Amen, which the Christians still say.
This includes a religion of mumbo-jumbo doublespeak. Every pyramid civilization uses this as part of a control mechanism to keep the population enslaved by force, by fear, and by ignorance. The indecipherable muddle of ins. However, if the ISB has amnesia, they will not remember that they had any possession. So governments, insurance companies, bankers, family members, and other vultures can pick their possessions clean without fear of retribution from the deceased. The only reason for these false meanings is to instill the idea that an ISB is not a spirit but a physical object. This is a lie. This is a trap for an ISB. Countless people have spent endless hours attempting to solve the jigsaw puzzle of Egypt and other old empire civilizations. They are puzzles made of pieces that do not fit. A question states, including their former body wrapped in linen to sustain their soul or ka after death. An ISB does not have a soul. An ISB is a soul. On the home planet of an ISB, their material possessions were not lost, stolen, or forgotten when the being died or left the body. An ISB could return and claim the possession. Irrelevant information, geometric designs, mathematical calculation, astronomical alignments are part of the false spirituality based on solid objects rather than immortal spirits, in order to confuse and disorient the ISBs on Earth. When the body of a person died, they were buried with their earthly possessions